Hey there, and welcome to your own personal deep dive, all about AI and prompting. It's wild to think that talking to computers used to be pure science fiction. And now look at us, diving headfirst into all the intricacies of making it work.
hmm
I took a look at that research paper you sent over about prompting AI.
Oh,
And wow, let me tell you, it really goes beyond just surface level stuff. It's not just about, figuring out the right commands to type. It feels like we're witnessing a whole new philosophy of communication emerging.
It is absolutely fascinating. And what we're seeing now, this is just the very beginning. Think back to when things like email or even word processing seemed complicated. Now we do those things without even a second thought, right?
Oh, totally.
Prompting AI, especially working with these large language models, it's going to become just as essential to our lives. And honestly, that's going to completely change the game for so many fields.
For sure. And the paper gets into this whole prompt engineering thing. To be honest, it sounds kind of technical, even a little intimidating. In fact, I remember you mentioning that you actually prefer the term prompt developer.
hmm
What is it about that term that resonates more with you?
Well, engineering as a word, it just sounds kind of, I don't know, intimidating, right? Like you need to have some kind of fancy degree in computer science just to even get started. But prompting, it's becoming less about just code and more about how we naturally communicate as humans.
Hmm.
Even in the research paper, they mention terms like prompt architect or even AI human communication.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I think this new language, it reflects a much broader perspective. It's writers, it's artists, psychologists, people from all sorts of fields all coming together, and they're figuring out this new frontier of how we talk to AI.
I love that. It really underscores just how much this tech is going to impact every single part of our lives.
And speaking of different perspectives, you mentioned this idea from the paper of thinking like AI.
Uh-huh.
Just to be clear, we're not saying people should ditch their brains and become robots, right?
Definitely not. It's more about understanding the way that AI interprets information, what makes it tick. It's almost like, imagine if you had an intern, right? And this intern is brilliant, but they do things a little differently.
Okay, I like where this is going.
You got to give them very clear, very explicit instructions. Because unlike a human who can pick up on all those subtle social cues and that unspoken context, AI needs things spelled out directly.
So no beating around the bush. Got
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
And this actually connects to a really important difference that the research makes. It's the difference between seeing AI as a generative tool versus a transformative one.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Break that down for me.
Okay, so think of generative AI as the tool that's creating something totally new, like from scratch, like a magic trick almost.
Transformative AI, on the other hand, takes something that already exists. So it could be something like, say, a rough draft you've written or a messy data set. And then it reshapes it, improves it, or maybe presents it in this totally new way. And what the research suggests is that, right now at least, AI is much better at transforming than generating.
That's really interesting. It actually reminds me of how you used AI for your thesis. You weren't asking it to write the entire thing from nothing, right? You used AI to help you organize all of your research, structure your arguments. Basically, you were transforming your raw ideas into this polished final product.
That's a perfect example, actually. You were already tapping into the real strength of AI, even if you didn't quite realize it at the time.
It's true. It's true.
It's about seeing AI as a partner that can refine and enhance the work you're already doing, not just as this magical content machine that does all the work for you.
Okay, that actually makes me feel a lot better about using AI. It makes it feel more collaborative, less like it's going to steal my job as a writer one day. Speaking of collaboration, though, the research delves into different communication styles for prompting. They even talk about these different prompter personas. Was there one that particularly resonated with you?
You know, I have to admit, I definitely see myself in the detailed prompter persona.
Really?
It seems like I tend to give the AI a ton of context, a lot of background information, probably even more than it actually needs sometimes.
Nice. That's hilarious because knowing you, I can totally see that. You're all about those details.
Right.
But what does being a detailed prompter actually look like in practice?
Let's say, for example, I want the AI to help me brainstorm ideas for a presentation. I don't just say, hey, give me some presentation ideas and leave it at that. I'll give it background on the topic, information about the audience, the key takeaways I want to get across. It's almost as if I'm painting a picture for the AI to look at before I ask it to start painting itself.
Okay, so it's about setting the stage, giving the AI all the info it needs to really grasp your vision.
Exactly. And that's just one approach. The research also talks about minimalist prompters who prefer short, very direct commands. And there are iterative prompters who prefer this back and forth with the AI. They refine the prompt as they go along.
Oh, I can definitely see myself as an iterative prompter,
Mhm.
starting broad and then fine-tuning the results with each round. It's
Yeah.
like having a conversation, but with AI. So we've covered a lot of ground already, but I know you're a big picture thinker. If we zoom out for just a sec, what's the key takeaway here for our listeners?
The most important thing to remember is that there's no single right way to do this. There isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to prompting. The way you communicate with AI, it depends on your personality, your goals. It even depends on the specific task you're working on. And that's what I find so fascinating about this whole field. It's about finding what clicks best for you and the AI that you're working with.
And that makes a lot of sense. It's like any new skill, really finding your groove is part of the fun. But let's dive into some specifics. You know I love a good, concrete example, and luckily for us, the research you sent over is full of them. What are some practical techniques our listeners can start using, like today, to step up their prompting?
Absolutely. Let's start with a technique called priming. Think of it like you're setting the stage before the main act of a play. Instead of throwing the AI into the deep end with some super complicated request right off the bat, you're going to warm it up by providing context gradually.
So instead of saying, write me a sonnet about the meaning of life,
Yeah,
you might start by asking the AI if it even knows what a sonnet is, or what kind of themes are usually explored in sonnets, that kind of thing.
exactly. You're essentially easing the AI into the right headspace. You're helping it get familiar with the key elements before you even ask it to create something brand new. And the results when you use this technique, they can be surprisingly impressive.
That's really cool. I was recently trying to use AI to generate ideas for a short story,
Hmm.
and it just wasn't clicking. I bet priming would have helped. I basically just threw the AI into the void, and then I was surprised when it just spat back generic tropes.
That's a really common mistake a lot of people make. We kind of expect AI to be mind readers, but in reality, a little bit of priming can go a really long way. And speaking of keeping things organized, another super helpful technique the research talks about is delimiter prompting.
Oh yeah, that one really stood out to me too. It's all about using those little visual cues, the brackets, the headings, the bullet points. You're creating a clear structure for the AI to actually follow.
Precisely. It's like you're giving the AI a roadmap instead of just telling it the destination and hoping for the best. And the beauty of this approach is that it can be as simple or as complex as you need it to be.
It's like that old saying, a place for everything and everything in its place. Except in this case, it's more like a delimiter for everything and everything in its delimiter.
You got it. For instance, let's say you're asking the AI to summarize a really long article. You could use delimiters to separate the main takeaways, the key points from all those supporting details. That way, it's crystal clear to the AI what it should really be focusing on.
That's such a good idea, especially when you're dealing with those longer prompts or when you've got multiple instructions happening at once. Delimiters can really save you from ending up with this jumbled mess.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's the always reliable example prompting technique, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're showing the AI what you want instead of just trying to explain it in words.
Sometimes actions really do speak louder than words, even for AI, it seems.
Exactly. It's like you're providing the AI with a template or a
Yeah.
reference point. Let's say you want to create a marketing email, but it has to be in a very specific style. Instead of trying to describe all the nuances of that style in words, which can be tricky, you could just show the AI an example of a similar email and say, do something like this.
Oh, that's so much easier than trying to spell out every little detail.
Yeah.
And the AI can actually pick up on all those subtle nuances. They're ones that might be really hard to even put into words. It reminds me of this one time when I was trying to get AI to generate code, but it had to be in a specific format. I spent like ages trying to explain it all in the prompt, but then once I just showed it an example, it nailed it perfectly.
Exactly. Example prompting can be so incredibly powerful,
Yeah.
yet it's often overlooked. It really proves that sometimes the best way to communicate with AI is to just show, not tell.
It's true.
No, we've spent a lot of time talking about the technical parts of prompting, but I know you're also interested in the bigger picture, the more philosophical side of all of this. And something that really got me thinking was this idea of something called reflection prompting.
Oh yeah, that one definitely jumped out to me too. I love getting meta, and this technique seems to take the cake. Tell me more about that.
Well, picture this. You can actually ask the AI, okay, why did you say that?
Hmm.
Reflection prompting is all about encouraging the AI to explain its reasoning, to sort of pull back the curtain and give us a glimpse into its decision-making process.
It's like asking the AI to show its work.
Yeah.
like back in math class. I love that. So instead of just getting an answer from the AI, you're also getting a peek into how it arrived at that answer. Why is that so valuable, though?
For several reasons, actually. First off, it can help you validate the AI's response. If its reasoning makes sense to you, then you can be a lot more confident in the output that it's giving you. Secondly, it can actually help you identify any biases or even flawed logic that the AI might be operating on.
It's so important, especially these days. It's like having this built-in bias detector. If the AI's reasoning seems off in some way, to take its output with a grain of salt.
Exactly. And lastly, this is a cool one. Reflection prompting can help you become a better prompter
What?
by understanding how the AI thinks. You can actually craft even more effective prompts in the future.
It's like this amazing feedback loop
Yeah.
of learning and improvement for both you and the AI. I have to admit something. When I first started experimenting with AI, I felt a bit intimidated. I'm not going to lie. It felt like this mysterious black box.
Yeah.
But learning all these techniques, especially this reflection prompting, it makes me feel so much more in control.
I get that completely. It's about making that shift from being a passive user to becoming this active participant in the process, from feeling intimidated by AI to actually understanding both its strengths and its limitations.
It's about gaining fluency in this new language, this language of human-AI communication. And the more fluent we become, the more incredible things we're going to be able to achieve together. Now, I know we're just scratching the surface here. The research actually mentions even more prompting techniques. Like, there's something called deliberate prompting, and then there's chain of thought prompting.
You're right. And these techniques offer even more nuanced ways to refine your whole approach, to guide the AI toward generating more thoughtful, more insightful outputs.
It's like we're not just users of AI anymore. It's like we're becoming its collaborators, its mentors even, helping it to evolve and become something truly remarkable. Speaking of remarkable, this research paper has definitely given us a lot to think about, but I'm curious, what's the one big thing you want our listeners to take away from this whole deep dive?
I think if there's one key message, it's this. AI is a powerful, powerful tool, but it's not magic. It demands understanding, skill, and a willingness to experiment and make mistakes and learn as you go. But by really mastering the art of prompting, we can unlock AI's true potential and then use it to enhance our own creativity, our productivity, and even our understanding of the world around us.
I love that. It's about looking past all the hype and the fear that's out there and seeing this incredible opportunity to actually collaborate with AI. It's funny. When I first started digging into the research for this deep dive, I thought it was just going to be about, like, technical tips and tricks. But it's become so much more than that. It really feels like we're at this turning point, like we're figuring out what our whole relationship with AI is actually going to look like.
It's a huge shift, no doubt. And the really exciting part is that we're not just sitting on the sidelines watching it happen. We actually have a say in this. We can shape this technology, guide its development in a way that benefits everyone.
Exactly. And that actually reminds me of something that really got me thinking in the research. They talk about how our prompts, the way we communicate with AI, it actually ends up influencing its development over time.
That's right. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Every single prompt we write, every interaction we have, it all gets absorbed. It all becomes part of this massive data set that shapes AI's understanding of the world and how it responds to us.
So it's not just about getting the results we want right now, in the moment. It's like we're playing this long game, contributing to the bigger picture of how AI evolves over time.
Precisely. It's almost as if we're all collectively writing the instruction manual for AI. We're the ones shaping its values and, yes, even its biases. And ultimately, that shapes its potential to do good or not in the world.
Wow, that is a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's also incredibly exciting. Makes me think about all those sci-fi stories where the AI goes rogue, maybe by being mindful prompters, by actually teaching AI how to think ethically and responsibly from the get-go. Maybe we can avoid those dystopian futures.
That's such an important point, and it really highlights why we need to bring ethics into the conversation about AI right from the very beginning. It's not enough to just focus on all the amazing things AI can do. We need to think long and hard about what it should do, what values we want to build into its very core.
Absolutely. And that responsibility, that doesn't just rest on the shoulders of, like, developers and researchers. It's on every single one of us. Everyone who interacts with AI, even in small ways,
Yeah.
our prompts matter. Our choices matter.
They do, every single one. And that's why I'm so glad you're digging into this topic with so much curiosity and depth. It's through conversations like this willingness to learn and adapt, that we can navigate this new world responsibly and ethically.
Well said. And honestly, this deep dive with you has been eye-opening. to say the least. It's not just about learning how to talk to a computer. It's about rethinking how we communicate as humans, how we learn, and what it even means to be human in a world that's being transformed by AI every single day.
I couldn't agree more. It's an incredible journey of discovery, and the truth is, we're all figuring it out together as we go.
So true. And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive. But before we go, any final words of wisdom for our listeners out there, those who are ready to really master this whole art of prompting?
Here's what I'll say. Embrace that curiosity. Be bold in your experimentation. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we learn. And never, ever underestimate the power of clear, concise, and ethical communication. Because the future of AI, it's not predetermined. It's in all of our hands. Let's shape it wisely.
Beautifully said. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into AI and prompting. We hope it sparked your curiosity and maybe even inspired you to explore this incredible world with confidence and a sense of wonder. Until next time, keep asking those thought-provoking questions, keep pushing those boundaries, and remember, the future is ours to create.